So I had Dunkin Donuts one time. Really didn't like it.
In Philadelphia?
Yeah, with you. I thought it was
that.
terrible. And I got to be honest, the Charli sounds like a nightmare to me.
It's not getting the best reviews.
Really?
People say it tastes like leftover cereal milk.
That sounds kind of good. Okay.
Too sugary, though. Too sugary.
Let's lay down some context here and why this is a big deal. So Charli D'Amelio, arguably one of the largest social media stars right now, launched a partnership with Dunkin Donuts to launch a drink called the Charli.
Yep, and you can purchase it within the Dunkin Donuts app.
Can you not purchase it at a Dunkin Donuts?
I don't know. I just saw that that's how they were marketing it. Like,
Okay.
they purchase it,
Got it.
within the app.
Still, that app has to be on millions of people's phones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is super significant distribution. So she launched her own drink at Dunkin Donuts. When she first started on TikTok, she integrated Dunkin Donuts quite a bit. It became a part of her narrative that like drinking Dunkin Donuts coffee was something that she loved. And there was a tweet that she had tweeted like a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was that this year? Or, I mean, again, in Charli D'Amelio's social media life, she's only been
everything
a star.
happened within the past
She's only
year
been a
and a
star
half.
for the past year. But she tweeted something about Dunkin', and Dunkin' yesterday when they announced said, like, we finally made it official. And so they actually collaborated. And this is now coming at a time where there's a series of different influencer collabs, especially in the food space, that are really interesting in these like consumer product and food spaces. But there's a question here of, what does it look like to launch a collaboration with one of these brands? We're seeing Charli D'Amelio with Dunkin Donuts. We saw David Dobrik have the Dobrik burrito at Chipotle. We see now Travis Scott is doing some collaboration with McDonald's.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about.
No idea what that's going to look like.
They're just kind of hyping it right now.
Yeah. And so, there's this world of major retailer or major food chain partnering with influencer to release product for limited times. And there's also the other space, which is influencer or creator launches their own food or beverage product or just brand into the marketplace.
And if you look at coffee specifically, we're talking about Emma Chamberlain with Chamberlain Coffee.
Yeah.
So it's sort of two different routes to go.
Yeah, you have the Chamberlain coffee route, which is a direct-to-consumer brand. That's Emma Chamberlain's coffee line that she partnered with a company for. But as far as consumers know, it's Chamberlain Coffee. And then you have the Dunkin Donuts collaboration with Charli D'Amelio, which is more of an advertising play.
But both of them had affiliations to coffee brands before. Charli with Dunkin Donuts in her TikToks, and then Emma Chamberlain would go to Phil's.
Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm. That coffee chain. Mm-hmm. So both of them sort of like declared allegiances to coffee brands.
Organically, not in a non-paid way. Yeah, just like because that's what they were into.
But now they've gone down two different routes.
Yes.
Starting your own coffee company because you've proven that you can sell coffee and your audience is interested in coffee, or partnering with a brand that already is established.
Yeah, so there's essentially like they're not mutually exclusive deals. You can do both. But when you look at what Charli and Dunkin are doing, it's not necessarily like a long-term licensing revenue play, I don't think. It's a short-term deal to basically make Dunkin', relevant, to drive people to come to Dunkin' and hopefully create lifetime customers. So it's like if you were following Charli, maybe you knew of Dunkin' Donuts, but maybe you weren't a coffee drinker if you were like a 13, 14-year-old TikTok fan or even 18-year-old. And then now you're like, well, I got to go try the Charli. And I got to make a TikTok about it. Now you go to Dunkin', you try the Charli, you get all hopped up on sugar and coffee. Charli's out in 2-3 weeks, and you're like, I still need my Dunkin'.
Still kind of like that Dunkin'.
Yeah, I'm running on Dunkin'.
It's not too dissimilar to when we were younger, and I'm sure this still happens now, but with the McDonald's Happy Meal, where they'll partner up with the Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. And if you're a little kid, you really want to go get that Happy Meal.
That's true.
So you can get the Power Rangers drink or the prize that comes in the Happy Meal.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, again, it's just a way to get people in the door. And it's probably a pretty good price point for Charli to be affiliated with a chain like Dunkin' Donuts. But again, it's just like, it's interesting that this world now, we're starting to get a lot more tangible with the way that we interact with creators. Like it's not just content. Like this is now morphing into what we knew as, like when we were younger, what celebrity kind of looked like. Like I remember I traveled a lot internationally when I was a kid, and I would land in like, I don't know, the Hong Kong airport. And then there was like George Clooney with a Rolex right when you get off, right?
Yep.
That is probably what we're moving towards. But again, it's like a more tangible format where I can actually walk to Dunkin' Donuts, grab something that connects me with my favorite creator, and actually consume it, which is totally different. And then again, on the flip side, I can buy Chamberlain coffee and have it in my house and drink it on a daily basis. And that drives my connection with, Emma Chamberlain as a creator.
You can also buy the Chamberlain planner at Target.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this world now, like when you really look at this, you start to understand, wait a second, it makes total sense for Walmart to buy TikTok. Because like, what if they make the Dunkin' K-Cups that are like Charli K-Cups, or if they make like prepackaged Dunkin' drinks that are Charli? Mm-hmm. Now, does Walmart step in and say, this is a great partnership. Let's exclusively carry the, 5-pack or 6-pack of Charli coffee juice boxes and put them in, like the Yoo-Hoos. Remember the Yoo-Hoos?
Yeah.
That would be dope if they were like square, and said like Charli on them. Charli coffee.
Whenever I think about Yoo-Hoo, I think about their description. Chocolate drink. Not chocolate milk.
That is troubling.
Chocolate drink.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that reminds me of like in the grocery store when you're perusing and you see like oat beverage. And you're like, no, I don't want that. I want the oat milk.
Yeah. What do you mean by
I'd prefer my oats milk.
I think they just don't want to call it chocolate water.
Right.
Or oat water. But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So now if you're a creator right now, like at what scale, the interesting thing is you have to be at a certain scale to get the Dunkin' partnership. And obviously that scale is like David Dobrik, Travis Scott, Charli D'Amelio, which now are kind of in the same breath, right? Those three are kind of in the same breath. Obviously different crafts, different artistry, but they do feel like they're operating at a level of influence that's different. Then there's the tier of influence that's, I would say, like the middle tier, has a lot more opportunity to do the Chamberlain coffee thing. Maybe not at the scale of Emma, but the direct-to-consumer opportunity for creators is really high. Like it's really large. And especially in product. Again, I think we're just moving away from apparel now. We're starting to move into spaces that are non-traditional for creators, but really dynamic.
I think there's also an interesting opportunity to really build out collectives or for creators to take a joint stake in the Chamberlain coffees of the world, right? To like develop their own product and have a few different creators who are involved in marketing it to their audiences.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like, in my opinion, that's the value of the Hype House or something like that, where they all, I mean, the perfect example is the other TikTok guys started that energy drink.
Yeah.
Anti-energy, where it's like they're all coming together to make an energy drink, and they'll all promote it and they'll all take a stake in it. But when you're Charli D'Amelio, you don't need anyone else.
Totally. When you're the biggest.
D'Amelio. Yeah. You're Charli. You can have like literally, how insane is that to have your own coffee at Dunkin' Donuts? That's insane. I think that's like, I mean, that has to be like such a large scale, and they're going to make so much revenue from it too. Like it's all around good. The only thing that sounds bad is the actual drink.
Yeah, I mean, it's
also, what age are people drinking coffee now? Because like
that's what
Charli D'Amelio started drinking coffee when she's 15. She's like downing Dunkin' Donuts coffee, like a large Dunkin' Donuts coffee at 15 years old.
I think kids are now. I mean, we talked about this in our Emma Chamberlain video, how she is now seeding her coffee to the next generation of coffee drinkers.
Right. So, okay. So here's the important thing to understand about influencer marketing when like the 13 to 17-year-old audience is targeted. This is something that I didn't understand 10 years ago when we got into this. But that audience is highly touted by advertisers. And the reason why is because you can create lifetime customers out of that audience. Typically, when someone's in their 20s, they're less likely to be influenced and become like, full lifers for a brand. But at 13 years old, it's also why sometimes you see car companies marketing at a 13-year-old audience or maybe a 15-year-old audience. Insurance companies marketing at this group, because you have to just have it where automatically when I turn the age that I have to buy car insurance, I already have State Farm in my head. I'm already like, that's the most trusted. I already have a relationship with them. So that's where I'll buy from. The same as, maybe if you're not allowed to drink coffee at 15 years old, or your parents don't want you drinking coffee, but you're a huge Charli D'Amelio fan, you're Dunkin' Donuts for life probably now.
I feel like influencers in general have changed the brand of coffee.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 13, 14, 15, hated the taste of coffee, and I associated it just with my parents, who I considered to be old.
Right.
Like it was not.
Yeah, coffee was an old person.
There was no one I looked up to on a regular basis that was young and drinking coffee.
I agree with that.
I had my first coffee in college because I felt like I really needed it to study for a test.
I think I had my first one with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
and even
I was
then,
I was like 22 or 23.
In college, I wasn't a regular coffee drinker. Again, it really wasn't until you and I got interested in coffee and started to feel like the joint rush.
Yeah. There was an excitement of like the legal drug.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was
but
maybe 6 years ago.
But now it's like sugar coated.
And nonstop ever since.
Yeah, it's been nonstop now. Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you start to understand what they're doing. Dunkin's basically saying, hey, when you start to become a regular coffee drinker, either A, can we turn you into a regular coffee drinker? Or B, if you already are one or considering one, or your parents go to Starbucks every day, come over to Dunkin'. We work with Charli D'Amelio. That is the value to Dunkin'. Like the value to Dunkin' is to create lifetime customers. Customers that are interested in Dunkin' for the rest of their life. And you can capture them now while Charli D'Amelio's hot.
Yeah, their opportunity is to become the Starbucks of Gen Z.
Yeah, it's interesting that other brands, like of course, Charli already had an affinity with Dunkin' because she, from day one, integrated them into their content. And I think what you brought up with Emma Chamberlain, it brings up an interesting thought around creators. Like creators, when they're first starting out and crafting their brand, it's really smart now to think about what are my brand pillars that could offer me the opportunity. Dobrik was Chipotle. Dobrik made that a brand pillar pretty early on, and that led to a partnership. So it's like, there's this conversation around free work in the creator world where it's, do I do stuff in exchange for product? Do I, do stuff for free? And like a lot of times people are like, don't do stuff for free because then it sets your rate, off. But if you're talking about big brands, like if all of a sudden we started just talking about Colgate, and we're just like, man, we love Colgate toothpaste from an early stage. You have a potentially like some weird opportunity over the course of the next 5 years to have like a toothpaste that comes out.
Yeah, I do think the key though is that we would have to be talking about Colgate authentically, and, and it has to actually just be naturally part of our content.
Yeah,
I think
it has to become a lifestyle, something or the other that's like integrated. Coffee's easy because it's naturally integrated into lifestyle content. It's like something that you do ritualistically. It's a daily thing. And again, with Dunkin', if you're getting a lifetime customer, it's almost like a subscription. Coffee operates like a subscription. If you're a fan of Dunkin' Donuts, like Charli D'Amelio is, if you tracked how much money she spent in a year at Dunkin' Donuts, it's going to be significant. Even if you're spending $5 a day, if you're spending $5 a day, there's almost no other subscription that you have that costs that much money. $5 a day, every single day, 30 days out of a month.
I think something to keep in mind too is that a lot of these brands, major brands that we're going to see getting involved with creators, I think are going to be brands that have a huge retail footprint.
Yeah, for sure. Because the thing is, creators make up a lot of real estate on the internet. And the thing that you want now as one of these big chains is to say, how can I translate that to my physical real estate? How can I bring them in the door? Because again, if a 15-year-old kid brings their parents to Dunkin' Donuts, everyone's getting Dunkin' Donuts. They're probably getting 4 or 5 coffees. They're probably getting a couple of donuts, maybe some egg sandwiches or whatever else they sell.
It's the perfect marriage between what parents would be interested in and what kids are interested in.
Coffee makes it so dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just even something that's as widely distributed as a Dunkin' Donuts store.
McDonald's
is a great example.
And Cactus Jack.
What did we say about Walmart? That like 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart.
Yeah. So now, like, again, it makes it make a lot more sense that Walmart buys TikTok. You know, it makes it all make sense now that we'll probably see this a lot more with creators, where there's like physical distribution of creator products. And that is the opportunity right now. Either it's your own brand or you're going to be big enough to partner with like a big chain.
And it'll continue to turn them into household names. I said in a tweet yesterday that these are household brands partnering with household names. And there was one person who said, I would hesitate to call them household names yet. And I think part of that is valid. Charli D'Amelio is not. Actually, I don't know. I think Charli D'Amelio is probably a household name.
I think it depends on the household, meaning like not literally the household, but if we pooled our 10 friends, I think we might be, 2 out of 4 who know it in the 10 people. But again, we're in a different age. Yeah.
Do you think Charli's brand grows because of a partnership with Dunkin Donuts? Like more people know about her because she's partnered, or do you think it's just the Charli D'Amelio fan group who is now purchasing?
Let me tell you how I found out about Cameron Dallas, Colin.
I remember I was there.
You were there. We went to Umami Burger and they were like, "Hey, we have a Cameron Dallas burger." I was like,
Who the hell is Cameron Dallas and why would I buy his burger?
And they were like, "He's a social media star." So I think there's that opposite effect too, where if you're distributed in Dunkin', there's that opposite effect too, where they're like, "Would you like to try our special, the Charli? What's the Charli? Oh, it's Charli D'Amelio's drink.
Who's Charli D'Amelio?
Who's Charli D'Amelio? Now I'm on her TikTok." Right? So there's also that other effect that when we talked to Mr. Beast as well, this is digital, but when he launched Finger on the app, we started talking about, wait a second, could Finger on the app, his game that he launched, end up becoming bigger than Mr. Beast and actually bringing audience to Mr. Beast's channel? So there's that opposite effect where it's really, symbiotic.
I mean, I know with Finger on the app, there were a lot of people who played who did not know who Mr. Beast was. It's very similar actually to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and the effect that game had on skateboarding.
That's good. Yeah, that's a really good
lot of people
comparison.
played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater that had never tried skateboarding, had no idea, maybe knew who Tony Hawk was. They didn't know who Rodney Mullen was.
Or Bob Burnquist.
Yeah. Or Chad Muska.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing.
And you get some of their brand inside of it, right? Like Charli D'Amelio's brand is going to seep through this Dunkin Donuts collab, as did, characters in video games. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I think that's fair to say about FIFA. Like you find out about soccer clubs through FIFA. So there's these mutually beneficial partnerships. I mean,
sometimes the creator space can feel like the Wild West.
Yeah.
But if you really look for the comps, they're there.
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of times, like the way that these stars were built are drastically different. But the way that they're being monetized, there's kind of a roadmap for a lot of it.
So I have 2 questions for you. First question is, if Colin and Samir were to do like a global brand partnership, like a Dunkin Donuts collab, what would we do? Who would we look for? Like, what would we?
Samsung.
Right. But launching a product, I'm saying.
Launching our own product.
I'll tell you what I would like.
Yeah, what's that?
I would like a pasta collab where we launch our own noodle.
Okay.
And on the back, there's like topics to noodle on.
This is a pipe dream. This is a real dream versus reality situation.
Yeah, but you never know who's watching.
We don't talk about pasta that often. We don't have many opportunities to integrate it into our content.
People aren't here when we talk about pasta, but we talk about pasta very often.
So we'll have to start literally like letting people into how often.
We'd have to let people into how often we're eating and talking about pasta. But that's the type of custom partnership I'd be looking for. Like again, it's a noodle, and on the back, there's topics that you can noodle on that are similar to the breakdown.
That was good.
Thanks, Colin. So,
well, if there's, if Barilla is out there.
Or Bonza, it could be Bonza too. Hit us up. All right, now, key takeaways for creators and brands in this collab. Like, what do you take away from now if you're a up-and-coming creator and if you are a brand looking to work with creators? Like, what does this Charli and Dunkin thing mean? In my opinion, if you are a creator, the biggest takeaway here is that the most important thing in the world is your ability to move people from your digital platform to another platform. And what's showing that it's increasingly more and more valuable, is moving them from a digital platform to a physical platform. And so integrating things that are physical from an early stage is really dynamic and important. We talked to a creator last week, Amanda Raichely, who, has content that's all around a physical product, which is a planner. Same with, Emma Chamberlain and Charli D'Amelio. They're making content and integrating physical things into their content from an early stage that, as their influence grows, makes their audience interested in moving from their digital platforms into a physical space.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with, as you're growing as a creator, having brands in mind that you would want to work with and what it would mean to work with them. The first time we worked with Nike, and even now working with Samsung, it's not like those partnerships came and we had never thought about it before.
Right.
Years before those partnerships came, we were crafting our content in a way that we thought those brands would find interesting and in a way that we also enjoyed personally, like our own content.
And I think when it comes to brands, when you start looking at how do I work with a creator, I think what's really important is now these custom integrations are happening. And of course, if you're not Dunkin Donuts, it doesn't mean that you can't work with creators in a custom way. But I think even if you scale it down and say, okay, how do I do a very custom and authentic collaboration with this creator that's not just something as simple as giving a code, right? Like, how do we actually mesh the worlds of my brand and their brand? And this Charli and Dunkin thing is perfect because Charli's world, Dunkin Donuts is a character. Dunkin Donuts world is, if someone walks into their world and buys the Charli, they can also buy the donut, they can also buy the sandwich, and they can do that on a daily or weekly basis. And so when you think about from a brand perspective and you want to work with a creator, you have to explore, how do I merge the worlds and open up a world that if someone comes here, they can actually interact on a regular basis with me. That's what makes the most dynamic collaborations.
I also think Dunkin Donuts is safeguarding themselves or just making a smart move by having people order through the app. I think you start getting people with the app on their phone, they get brought into the Dunkin Donuts ecosystem. Again, even if they stop watching Charli D'Amelio at some point as they get older, they may retain their love of Dunkin Donuts, and that may have started with an introduction by Charli D'Amelio.
Last question for you. You live across from a Dunkin Donuts. Have you been there since you moved?
I have not.
Really?
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
But it's something I've talked about.
You've become very LA if you haven't gone there.
No, I was very close to going about 2 days ago to get a bagel sandwich. I just didn't think I had the time.
You could walk. Like, that's how close Dunkin is to you.
I could roll. It's so close. I live across the street.
You still haven't been?
Haven't been. I'm not a big fan of Dunkin Donuts coffee.
Okay, that's news to me.
The donuts are great.
Because in Philadelphia, you took me there.
But it wasn't great, right?
It was terrible.
Yeah, and even I admitted it wasn't great.
Terrible. I'll look right into the lens and say that. Any Dunkin fans out there?
But it shocked me because I was...
Yeah. I'm also, I did want to take a step back because we drink coffee a lot. So if there is a, Colin and Samir Dunkin collab in the future, I can help you make the coffee better.
I don't know if that's the starting point they want to work together, is to acknowledge that we think your coffee's not good and
convince me otherwise, Dunkin. Okay, all right, that's it for this one.